Running a business comes with a lot of what-ifs. But luckily, there's a simple answer to them. Shopify. It's the commerce platform behind millions of businesses, including Thrive Cosmetics and Momofuku, and it'll help you with everything you need. From website design and marketing to boosting sales and expanding operations, Shopify can get the job done and make your dream a reality. Turn those what-ifs into... Sign up for your $1 per month trial at shopify.com/special offer.
If you are just tuning in, this is The Other Side of Midnight. I'm Frank Morano, and I am told we are joined by the one and only nationally syndicated radio talk show host, New York Times best-selling author, host of One Nation on the Fox News Channel, and one of the most gifted storytellers around, both in person and on television and on radio, the one and only Brian Kilmeade. Brian, I got a note that you were off today from your show, and I felt so bad that I made you get up early to do us. What's your deal today in terms of your work schedule?
No. So it's kind of interesting. I'll couple of things. Number one, the State Department asked me to come today to speak to 300 people, officials, about the Tripoli Pirates book, about the history of Islamic extremism in the area. And I go, you know what? I can't miss that. So I was not able to get off Fox and Friends. I could not work it out to travel. I didn't want to pre-tape a live show that should be a live show. So I thought, this is the last minute. I really can't turn that request down. So I'm going to do Fox and Friends and hop on an Amtrak and go in and speak.
Oh, great! So I'm just glad.
One,
that's a great opportunity, but I'm glad that you're not getting up early just for us. Good.
No, but I wouldn't do that for you, Frank.
I know. Indeed.
Yeah, I mean, imagine if I'm off today. I'm like, okay, it's 4:20. I have no idea what's happening, but I'm going to go on with Frank and just find out from him what's happening. Yeah. I wouldn't even help your show at all.
No.
Your show.
No, it couldn't be further. I'll take you uninformed in the middle of a dead sleep over most guests at their most informed. All right. Let me ask you about Signalgate, Brian. I know you've covered it. I'm sure you've got a lot of opinions about it. There seems to be a controversy that in some quarters is growing, in other quarters it's being totally dismissed. Obviously, people know the story by now, but Jeffrey Goldberg accidentally being included on this chat that included discussion of plans to attack the Houthis in Yemen. How detailed that plan was seems to be up for debate. Tulsi Gabbard says one thing, and they're saying this wasn't really necessarily even classified information. Andrew McCarthy, scathing column in the New York Post, saying something very different. Give me your take on this, Brian.
I still see this I was just watching CNN, because I say, let me just find out what everybody's saying about this. I always flip around, but especially on this, there's so much information before you get to opinion. I talked to Michael Waltz night before last, right after he left Laura Ingram's show. And I said to him, I have a sense that you're not really sure still. And he said, yeah, he doesn't know. And I'm listening to Anderson Cooper say that you got to get their story straight. It's not a matter of getting your story straight. They don't know. So they don't understand, they can't figure out how a guy that is not, I'll tell you for a fact, Michael Waltz does not have Goldberg on his contact list. So why should he tell people he's taking the blame? It's very simple. He's taking the blame because he's in charge. So you could say John Catsimatidis owns WABC, and you could say Frank Morano, Sid Rosenberg said X, Y, and Z. But he'd say, hey, I own the station. They made a mistake, but it's my responsibility. But he clearly didn't do anything that Frank Morano or Sid said wrong. That's what Waltz is doing. I don't think he physically put this together. I think he staffed it like everybody would. Do you know he literally is doing, I was in his office 2 weeks ago. He's literally doing 7 major things at once. For him to actually say, give me my phone. Okay, Hegseth, got it. Next contact, got it. Rubio, got it. There's no way. So he's handed this contact list, and he's on the phone, and they're doing their thing. All right? In that thing is complicated stuff that we should not know. Now they're like, why would Pete Hegseth say that? Because he thought it was secure. Battle plan, war plan, I would not have gotten down that hole, but battle plan, war plan, it doesn't matter. But when he's talking like he's in the Situation Room. And the way I understand it, That's okay since the advent of Signal on the phone of the CIA director, which I found out in open testimony. He said when they handed me phone, when John Radcliffe became CIA director, they handed phone. They said, see the Signal app? You can use that. So I'm sure they said the same thing at the White House. So they handed this thing, they put this together, and in real time, they're doing a bombing raid in the Houthi rebels. So we see no unvarnished back and forth. Hey, JD, boom, the bombing started. JD doesn't like this. Okay, that's fine. Does the president understand this is a contradiction to his policies? Yes, Stephen Miller. Yes, we're doing it anyway. Got it. Back to the fighting. Okay, that's what's happening because they think it's secure, Frank. They think it's secure.
Right.
So what happens in that chat? You can't drill down and say, why'd you say that? Well, he's saying it because they're bombing. They're talking to people exclusively, and they thought it was secure. So I'm listening to people say, why would Pete Hegseth say that? Well, because he's the defense director, secretary, and he's telling the others what's happening and what he's hoped to happen. So I would have, as Britt Hume said last night, you address it. You the way you want to express regrets, get to the bottom of it, let you know. Next question. Frank Moreno puts up his hand, and he says, but why was Pete Hegseth, excuse me, I told you we're investigating. Next question. And she has done such a good job mixing that press room. It's not like the Russia investigation where everybody's got the same topic. There's guys from Breitbart who's going to put up their hands. There's people from Newsmax going to put up their hands and say, what's with these judges? What's with these judges that just legitimately, they just stopped the next deportation to El Salvador? So these are like, you don't have to go to, by the way, your hair looks different, Mr. President. And do you feel your hair looks better than the next term? You literally have great topics. So TikTok, an example. ICE just made picked up 357 people. The mayor came out and ripped Tom Homan again. I don't know. It's a pretty good question. Pretty good question.
My cat Freddie loves to be brushed and cuddled. But stirring up his cat allergens meant sneezing and itchy eyes. Then I found Purina One Live Clear. It's cat food that reduced the major allergen and my suffering in as little as 21 days. Now, we feel closer than ever. If you have issues with cat allergens, you really need to try Purina One Live Clear.
Try new Purina One Live Clear today. Purina One, a difference from day one.
My name is Lily, and I've had hidradenitis suppurativa, HS, for years. I finally found some relief since taking Cosentyx. Relief means I can show up more.
Cosentyx secukinumab is prescribed for adults with moderate to severe hidradenitis suppurativa, HS. Don't use if you're allergic to Cosentyx. Before starting, get checked for tuberculosis. An increased risk of infections and lowered ability to fight them may occur, like tuberculosis or other serious bacterial, fungal, or viral infections. Some are fatal. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms like fevers, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough, had a vaccine or plan to, or if inflammatory bowel disease symptoms develop or worsen. Serious allergic reactions and severe eczema-like skin reactions may occur. Learn more at 1-844-COSENTYX or Cosentyx.com.
Ask your dermatologist about Cosentyx.
This podcast is supported by Progressive, a leader in RV insurance. RVs are for sharing adventures with family, friends, and even your pets. So if you bring your cats and dogs along for the ride, you'll want Progressive RV insurance. They protect your cats and dogs like family by offering up to $1,000 in optional coverage for vet bills in case of an RV accident, making it a great companion for the responsible pet owner who loves to travel. See Progressive's other benefits and more when you quote RV insurance at Progressive.com today. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Pet injuries and additional coverage and subject to policy terms.
Your snacking routine can get a little dull. Time for an Oikos remix. Like a crunchy storm of sea salt praline pretzels, dark chocolate, and butter toffee, showering down into a smooth, creamy yogurt. Enjoy 3 Oikos remix varieties with epic mix-ins and 11 grams of complete protein per 4.5-ounce serving. See remixyogurt.com.
I'll say, no doubt about it. In terms of in terms of where things are, within Washington these days, you have, it seems like, a great deal of turmoil within the Democratic Party. A lot of people really ticked off at Schumer for his decision to essentially not shut down the government, increasing chatter of AOC primarying Schumer. That's probably the highest profile establishment Democrat that's being threatened with a primary, but there's a whole bunch of others, veteran Democratic legislators who are being threatened by primaries by, young, aggressive, progressive firebrands. Where do you see the intra-Democratic Party battle going in the next 2 years, Brian?
It's fascinating because it's usually Republicans who have
Right.
this issue.
Exactly.
Not as crude and crass. So it's fascinating. But I'll tell you what, the biggest nightmare, and I've said this to you last week, Schumer did the right thing. They said that, and I've asked people like Jason Crow was in studio. I said, why are you guys so mad at this guy? Whatever you think of Chuck Schumer, what choice did he have? He goes, well, he indicated behind the scenes he was going to have a different stance, and he made his change without telling people. All right, that's not the story. The story is, why did you give in? I never give away anything for nothing. Republicans weren't dealing. So you could say, I need this and less defense, but Republicans, I go, listen, you want to shut the government down, you can shut the government down. This is what we're doing. So Schumer says, it's not going to help. He did the right thing. Problem is, his messaging inside the caucus was, we fought in the House. We stayed together. We only lost one vote. We go to the Senate. You didn't even try. But to me, the most wholesome analogy I could come up with is, can you imagine if you have a terrible day at work and you walk in the house and you start yelling at your family? Yeah, they did a little thing. Maybe they left the magazines out. Maybe they didn't, they didn't clean up after themselves. But your real problem was at work. And your real problem is not with Chuck Schumer. Your real problem is that Trump won. He literally has 100 executive orders. He's revamping our whole international posture. He's gutting our spending. He's privatizing the federal workforce. And you come in and you start yelling at Chuck Schumer. Your problem is with the election results. And I think that you had a bad day and you're yelling at your family. Because Chuck Schumer is not the problem. He really isn't. And I'm not a Chuck Schumer fan. He's rolling out an anti-Semitism book when he ignored anti-Semitism in New York City for 3.5 years. So, maybe his whole career. His anti-Israel stance. And he goes, let me just talk about anti-Semitism and the history of it. Well, you didn't even stick up for it. So that's the bigger problem with Chuck Schumer. Not that vote. But now he couldn't be happier about this Signal story.
Oh, yeah. No, that guy helped him dodge a bullet. Hey, what's going on with this Brett Gardner investigation? This is really a sad situation. This 14-year-old young man dead, yeah. And, initially it was thought to be asphyxiation. Now they're ruling that out. I'm hearing everything from reports of an allergy to insecticide. What's your take on how this investigation is unfolding, Brian?
I remember, I'm not going to say the island, but my whole family got food poisoning. And one of the kids the other family I was with, he was probably 14. He was so bad, they had to bring him to the airport in a wheelchair from food poisoning. And we were kind of laughing, like, food poisoning is bad. But I'm thinking to myself, that's the exact same age at the time. Right. The guy's in his 20s now, that Brett Gardner's son was. And I would say this, he wasn't drinking. So at first I thought, man, did this guy drink beer, get to have alcohol poisoning? But no. Then you think to yourself, a lot of times you go to these Caribbean islands, like when you go on spring break, you go to the cheapest hotel and they, just to get out there. But this guy was in a luxury hotel. Brett Gardner was $2,000 a night luxury, whatever it's called, a condo or a bungalow. So right away, it's higher end. So I'm not saying that if you're in a beautiful restaurant, you can't get food poisoning. You can, but it looks like that is what happened, and I just don't know how you wrap your head around it. And what you hear too, baseball. Do you know Gardner's reputation as being the ultimate family and locker room guy? That's why Brian Cashman couldn't let him go, because he was such a positive force. So it's just tragedy all around. I don't know how you deal with it. I really don't. You can't even say the kid found, he went with a bad group of guys, or, he got in the wrong car, or he drank too much. He did nothing
right. There's
wrong.
At least a logic to all of those things, right? This is just out of nowhere. It's just, that's what's so sad about it. No, it's
but it's interesting. I look at Gardner on a side note, like with Charles Oakley, one of the most lauded non-superstar players in New York sports history. They just they're worshipped by their team and their fans, but the numbers don't say they're going to Cooperstown or Canton or Springfield.
That's for sure.
So I just thought, yeah.
Yeah, no, and as we go into opening day this week, I think a lot of the Yankees players, staff, and fans, they're all feeling that loss, even though they may never have met any of the Gardner family. So we'll see where that goes. All right. In terms of the Russia-Ukraine situation, this is at times seeming to show a great deal of promise for a ceasefire. At other times, it seems like we're farther away from a peaceful resolution than ever. Where are we at this point, and where are we going?
Number one, Trump goes in, and I think he knows the personalities better than I even thought. So he knows. If you go ahead and tell Vladimir Putin, listen, you're losing. You lost 700,000 people. You got to make a deal. Putin is just going to get his Mussolini up, and he's going to look defiant, and he's going to just say, I'm going to hold the courts because I don't care about people, and I'm getting no internal political pressure. So he just says him and Zelensky have worked things out to his credit. They lost their tempers, and now they're fine. They really are fine. And I saw that Zelensky did an interview in the Daily Mail, and he said that he blew it. And he said that he had a heavyweight belt of Klitschko's to give to Trump, and instead he reached for the pictures. And those pictures ticked Trump off because he says, we've been through this already. You're doing this for the cameras. And he's trying to get whatever you think about that. This is what Zelensky says. So I like that Trump said, when asked this question, is Putin trying to buy time? Is he stringing this out? Instead of him defending Putin, he said he might be, as if to say, really? Do you really want to continue this? Do you understand I am your human off-ramp? Where you could say I reestablish relations with America, I get back on the SWIFT banking system, I could maybe unfreeze the $500 billion or the $300 billion. So he's got a chance. And when Trump's ready to walk away, I think that's when we'll find out how far Russia's looking to go. For example, Frank, there's no way Russia should be looking for any concession on a ceasefire. They're asking for things to free up the Black Sea. And last night, I understand they hit an energy sector inside Ukraine. So it's discouraging, but I just know this. Putin has an off-ramp, and he's not stupid. He's evil, but he's not stupid. There are stupid leaders like Maduro out there. He is not one of them. And he saw what life was like, even though he sucked it up and made himself a military economy. He saw what life was like for the last 3.5, 4 years, and he knows it's going to get worse because Trump was his best chance. If he makes Trump look bad, he is going to unnecessarily put extreme pain on this operation because you know what Trump's going to do next? I think he's going to say that I'm going to give more arms to Ukraine, or I'm going to allow the Europeans to flood more arms to Ukraine. And then all of a sudden, it's like time is not going to run out. And there are more sanctions you can put on Russia if you make Witkoff and Rubio and Waltz look bad. So it's going to be an interesting, I hope, within 2 weeks. Only because Trump has put himself in such a place. He's allowed Putin to keep his pride. All I could say is he has a way to keep his pride and stop the fighting for 30 days and then see where it goes. And I think the Europeans going to visit this week. Macron was there yesterday, and they're going to come in they're going to have like 24 of they call the coalition of the willing. It just shows that Ukraine is not being abandoned. So I'm so glad you asked me that question. Nobody talks about this anymore.
I know.
But I'm happy to talk about it. I think it's the most consequential thing in the world.
Do you know what you're doing on One Nation this weekend yet?
Look at it. We're probably. I'm definitely going to look at Kayleigh McEnany. Is going to be out for sure. We're going to kind of work our way backwards from there. We got a few people we're looking at, but I just want to see what's going on with the whole Signal story first before I dive into anything.
Brian, good luck at the State Department. I have seen that presentation that you've done on the Tripoli Pirates, and those guys are in for a real treat. And by the way, if anybody hasn't purchased that particular book yet, I absolutely recommend it. And folks can get it at briankilmeade.com. Thomas Jefferson and the Tripoli Pirates, the Forgotten War. that changed American history. It was, I'd like to think I know a thing or two about history, and that was an aspect of American history that I knew very little about until reading your book. So I know those guys were in for a treat.
All right, go get him, Frank. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Brian Kilmeade.